Tom Levecki here with a special live edition of the Armchair NBA. With recent events going on, a new podcast coming out, etc., there is, I believe, a renewed interest in the Bonanno crime family. With that being said, hello. With that, Mario. With that being said, we're going to have Frank Fiordolino on, and we're going to dissect and diagnose what happened to the Bonannos, the rise and fall of Joey Messino and the Bonanno crime family. With that being said, for those that are newer to the show, we have a lot of new subs. We just passed 25,000 subs. I want to thank each and every one of you who subscribed. We're broadcasting today on Armchair NBA, Mobsters Inc., Twitter, as well as Twitch. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Frank Fiordolino, welcome back to the Armchair NBA, man. How you doing?
Good, Tom. How are you?
Good. I'm happy to have you back on. I know we discussed some of this in earlier shows, but this is going to be a little more dedicated to the specifics of the rise and fall Messino, pre and post Messino. Why don't you give a little quick background of yourself in terms of when were you on the street, when did you get arrested, and when were you off the street?
Good call. When was I on the street? Until 2002.
Oh, that late. Okay.
Yeah, I got picked up on the first Bonanno indictment, and that was in June. Well, it actually was in the first act. The actually first ones I got superseded into that indictment. That actually went back to March of that year, 2002.
Okay. So you got March, got superseded in June. Okay. So, but you were on the street to 02, right? It was after 9/11. You were on the street for a while. If you don't mind asking before we get into it, give us your last 30 days of freedom. Like if we were to think about 30 days away from being picked up, did you know you were getting picked up? Did you not know? Ignorance is bliss. Set us up for your last 30 days of freedom.
That's a good question. It was empty in a sense of all my friends were getting locked up.
Yeah.
So I had all my friends locked up. I was one of the last few people to get picked up. And I kind of thought I skated because I really got past the younger crew, the younger generation, of the kids I grew up with. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe I'm a second thought. There's 9/11, like you said. Maybe they're going after terrorists now. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. There's nobody out here. It's just me. And then the other side of me was like, I hope these motherfuckers don't think I'm telling because I wanted to get arrested, but not on a fucking murder charge, but I was like, at least a fucking 5-10 year charge like that. People ain't gonna start saying, why the fuck is this guy out? You know what I mean?
What again, did you wake up one day and it happened, or
oh yeah. Helicopters, FBI agents, that was it. I
never asked you this. Where were you specifically, and walk us through that morning?
Well, I had gotten into a fight with my ex, and I went home to sleep at my mom's house, like many of us guys do. Fucking, say fuck this, I don't need the headache, whatever. And I don't know what happened. Things got better that night, and I ended up going to her house. So they followed me because I know they did, and they stayed at my mom's house for about looking for me. They go, we know you know where he is, and my mom was like, I don't know where he is, whatever. And they traced it, whatever, and they came like 2 hours later at my girl's house and they picked me up.
So, okay, was it big fanfare, knock down on the door? Like you said, helicopters, get down, or was it knock on the door?
No, it was cool. It was cool. Her mom lived on the first floor. She came up and she goes, hey, look, there's a whole bunch of cops looking for you. And she really didn't know it. I mean, she knew I was around fucking people, but she didn't really know the extent of it.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, she even put up her house. So she was one of them for a bail package that never was going to happen anyway. I think a couple of my family members did too.
So,
yeah, I wasn't getting no fucking bail.
So when you like real quick, when you get picked up, right? And they obviously say the charge, or hopefully they have to say the charge. But prior to, like, the cops are downstairs, they're coming to get you, and then they handcuff you and tell you the charge. Like, did you know? Oh, they got me on this, or was it? Oh,
No, I asked.
real quick, or was it possibly like one of five things? You know what I mean?
No, I asked exactly. I mean, yeah, of course. What is it? Now I know that my people I used to pal around with got arrested, and they did inform me it was a Bonanno indictment.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. Now I'm like, wow, this is more serious than I thought. But then I said, what am I arrested for? And they said, racketeering, the aid of murder and the aid of racketeering. And I was like, okay, all right. And then they go,
and that particular crime you did.
Yeah, I didn't fess up to it or not.
And no, of course. And then how did they find out about it?
What do you mean?
So obviously they arrested you. Was it an informant? Was it wiretap?
No, well, yeah, at the time, good question also. At the time, they had taken a couple of guys from that Giannini roundup.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, they weren't even accomplices, but they were people who heard it from other people. Like one of my accomplices who ended up flipping went around telling people that was me. He had nothing to do with it, and he was putting that out, but in a secret. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with an older guy that died now, and I said he's opening up his mouth, and if he does it again, I said I know what he's doing. He's putting up, what do they call it? Tickle the Y, I guess.
Yeah.
And he said it's up to you. I said, oh, whatever. I said I knew his dad. I was like, let's just play it out, and we didn't talk about it again.
Okay, so you got swept
up. There was at that point I felt that my case on the murder, because you got to remember it was 9 years old. I on that set murder they were talking about was 9 years old, and I was interrogated for it, and just like the first 48, and I said I never had anything to do with it.
Got it. So let's set this up for everybody. So we talked about the pizza connection actually on another video. You can check back in the library for that. Highly suggest it. Actually, I think we talked about that on Mobsters Inc. So please subscribe to Mobsters Inc. If you're on Armchair, and if you're on Armchair, please subscribe to Mobsters Inc. So with that being said,
hey Carlos.
Yeah. So with that being said, ciao amico, Orazio. With that being said, though, it was an interesting time, right? So post Pizza Connection, early 90s, the Bonannos get decimated. It's kind of post Rastelli. Walk us through briefly. We kind of know this story, but I'd like to hear the details and how we structured. How did Messino take this family that was basically in shatters and get it back to arguably the number 2 family in New York at the time?
Well, you have to give credit for that to the second biggest cooperator, right? Whatever the fuck you want to call it, in the family. That was Salvatale. While Joe Messino was in jail on the Donnie Brasco case.
Yeah.
And I think it was a trucking case of Donnie Brasco case. I remember that he got cleared on the 3 cap, or he got convicted of the conspiracy, one or the other, because then he got convicted of the actual murder years later.
Okay.
But I don't know. He was doing that 8-year bid, and he came out, 92 or 93. Sal pretty much was taking care of the family.
Okay, and that was Messino's brother-in-law, who actually turned out to be a former corrections officer, which we'll get into in a minute. So Sal started to set up the structure. Joe Messino gets out, and he hits the ground running pretty hard, and brings the Brigada kind of back to I call it the second Pax Bonanno era. So give us what did he do first? How did he structure it? And then what changes he made and how it, again, how he regrew the family.
Well, he keeps people close to him that he could pretty much control. So those was his higher ups at the time. But he also tries to eliminate a lot of things like the social clubs, whatnot. But then he shit on it because then he opens up a restaurant where he has all the people come there anyway. So it's like defeating the purpose.
Yeah, well, okay, so that was one of them, but that's more to me, that's more tactical than strategic, but I get it. But give us some of the strategic things that he did, like closing uh, uh, like a social club, no weddings, funerals, baptisms, etc. To me, that's tactical. What are some of the strategic things he did, if that makes sense? You know what I
Well,
mean?
he had a good shelf life too. He was out to 2003 of January. So the other thing that was annoying the shit out of him was the small farm teams, the unwanted attention, and then
Yeah,
that whole thing with Spiro, who was his third guy, and
yeah.
he felt that a lot of these kids were bringing fucking heat to the family, and being my friends too, and you know, but that was the other thing. But he
Uh,
tried to nip that in the ass. The other thing he was trying to do is make, I talk about that N word all the time, the nepotism, and it seemed like he was trying to make the money kids where they were, where he was making them, and really disassociated himself with the people that he might have a problem with later on.
what about? I always wondered this, and it might have been timing, simply timing. Why didn't Spiro get the top spot? He was more powerful, I believe, in the
Then
'90s
who?
than Messino. Even
Absolutely not.
you don't think so? Okay,
No, no, not at all. This guy was doing it. He was a master manipulator. The three captain hit by itself.
yeah.
He had his foot in the Galante hit by putting the word on the streets on the other family. No, not at all.
Did Spiro Messino get along?
Of course, because he only wanted people up there that he could get along with.
Got it. Okay, so you know better than me. I always thought Spiro was pretty much a heavyweight, but then he kind of got like older. Then obviously got jammed up, and I thought that's why. But if you said she has more power, I trust you. So
No,
okay,
no, no,
so
no. He was a powerful guy. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't no Joe Messino.
got it. Did you ever meet George from Canada yourself?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. He was a family friend. He was also at one of my relatives' engagement party, wedding. Another cousin of mine's wedding. Yeah, of course.
Was he from Castellamare?
No,
He's from Shasha, right, or whatever. Shaka.
yeah,
Shaka.
yeah. He
Yeah.
wasn't from Castama. No.
Got it. Okay. Um, all right. So now Massino comes in. Again, he says no social clubs. Be careful about talking. Reorganizes some stuff, but then he kind of put like an administration together. At first, made sense. Made a lot of guys at first made sense. So give us some of the other initial moves that he made right, and then we'll start talking about the decline.
Um, I don't know. That was about it. And you got to remember too, he takes a lot of credit, but there was a lot of decimation with the other families that were going on. So I guess we were on deck. We were like fifth on deck because other
Yeah.
things were going on. The whole Gotti thing.
Well, I felt that he was smart
The Colombos,
politically.
the Lucchese's, the Genovese
Yeah.
was the chin was getting locked up. So he was next. There
Yeah.
was an
No,
article in the Daily News that
well, I
said the
felt,
last Don.
yeah, I felt that it was smart to hook up with Gotti at the time. I think Gotti and I think it was the Colombos, and then he leveraged his relationship with Gotti to get back on the commission. I think that kind of cemented kind of his power base because now he not only
Oh,
is
without a
he
doubt, without a doubt.
yeah, not
But
only is
in the trying times, if you let
yeah,
me, in the trying times of the Bonanno family, when everything was looked like it was collapsing, it seemed like the Bonanno family was a satellite of the Gambino family, attached to the Gotti crew.
yeah.
So they did a lot of the Gotti crew right there at Ozone Park. They were definitely big friends of Big Joe Messino.
It says here, I think saying George might have been from Catholica.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's where he is exactly. The same place where Vinny Rizzuto,
well, I was gonna say the
Vito Rizzuto.
yeah, I was gonna say. No wonder why they were Paisan. All
Yeah,
right.
he took that pretty offensively.
Well, I know that there's things. The reason why people know why George from Canada got killed. That was because of Messino power, and then in Canada why Lopresti got killed. What did you hear
My
about
my
that?
thing is mine is speculate. I don't know, but I've
Well,
heard
that's
both
why you're here
theories.
as a consultant.
I heard the government's argument. I've heard people's arguments, and I'm gonna go probably with the probably I'm gonna go with it. It was the kind of like this guy was being brazen, George was, and he was stepping on Joe's. Joe didn't like anybody to come up like he did because he did what he had to do to get up there, and he wasn't gonna trade it in for nothing.
Well, let me.
I mean,
Okay,
just
so,
the way he was.
yeah.
I remember him saying in front of like 3 or 4 of us that John brought this fucking thing back 100 years. You know, John's also the one who got you there. You know what I mean? Talking about John Gotti.
And you dealt directly. We're not. Well, you were the same defendant meetings as Messino. Give us kind of how he was as a
Yeah,
person, mannerisms. You know.
I said all the time. He's very jovial, very like funny.
Yeah.
Side jokes with a look, and then a remark. But at times he would get a little heated, and you could tell. But it wasn't like he wasn't making a show. You know what I mean? He would just complain about something like these motherfuckers are trying to do this and that, and then he'd stop. But yeah, he was a funny guy, or is a funny guy.
Did he when you were there? Did he exude boss?
No, he got that though. I mean, wherever he went, he got that. I mean, when he said something to one of us that was getting a little bit like I almost got a fight with a correctional officer in front of him on the way to court. And he looked at me and he said, "Stop." He goes, "We can't win with these motherfuckers. Just stop." And I just did. At the time, Willie Ravello Glasses was on a bus with us. We were going to court. There was like 6, 7 of us. Anybody who was really in fucking trouble in that indictment,
yeah,
was going to court. So he had cancer. He was like a 68-year-old man. He falls off the bus. It's kind of funny now. I liked Willie. He was a good man. He fell off the seat of the bus and he's black boxed. But he lands with his head underneath the seat and his ass sticking out. And it's a bumpy fucking trip. And they're not going to stop because they got cars in front of him. But I was making such a fucking ruckus to get him up because he's a sick man. And he's telling me, as tough as he was, the old man's like, "Don't fuck them. Don't give in to them motherfuckers. I'm fine. I could do this right." I go, "No, you're not doing shit." And they stopped and me and the guy get into it, And they put him back in his seat, which was good because he looked real uncomfortable. But
now, so as he builds his power base, as he kind of gets going, Messino made a lot of money, parking lots, construction. I still believe that Bananas were still in the drug business at the time. That's my opinion. So they were making money. Things were flush, right? But when things started going a little sideways, and we'll get into the rolling of people becoming informants, because there wasn't one informant in the Bonanno made member in the Bonanno family from Lucky Luciano's formation of the commission all the way to 2000, I think in 2, correct?
Yeah, October 2002, you get your first cooperators that had positions, high positions. You had Cantarella and Copa. Then you had Joe
I want to
D'Amico.
get there. Don't jump ahead if you don't mind, but I want to get there. Okay. So you had 72 years essentially of zero cooperators, correct?
Yeah, and like from 2002 to 2005, you're talking about 15 guys. About 10 of them would higher up positions.
Okay, so let's go through that roll. Let's go through top line. We don't need to go through each one. So my understanding through my research, the first role was Frank Copa, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us about Frank, please.
Well, Frank was involved in the Sonny Black murder, but he wasn't looking at a lot of time. He was in Fort Dix, and they're actually giving him a kite while he was out on the street, Joe Messina, that this guy might flip. They send him out that because he was acting really fucking weird. And he got indicted on the second round of the indictment I was on. So there was 14 people on my indictment, and I think another 20 came in. But the higher ups on that indictment were them two and Willie Ravello, who happened to be a captain himself. He didn't flip. And them two came in, and they flipped in 2 weeks.
Okay, so hold on. This is important because we talked about earlier about how he built the Brigada, right? He brought in his own people, so maybe some nepotism, strategically made some decisions.
Well, the most important thing to know about those two was this.
Yeah.
One put Joe Messina in the murder, okay? And even though Salvatore's involved like 7, and the other guy, the Canarella guy, puts Salvatore in 2 murders.
Well, hold on, we're going to get there.
That's the wild card there, okay?
No, hold on, number two. So we had Frank Copa. But before we get there, what I'm trying to get at is I really want to unpack this. Like I said, Frank, I love the business end and the strategy of how Cosa Nostra operates. His philosophy was, I want money guys. I want to be the new Cosa Nostra. I want to be more business friendly. I want to be like the West Side, right? So Copa was a money guy. Walk us a little bit about him. I think he was a big money guy, correct?
Yeah, it was a real big money guy. He was at every aspect of the mob as far as putting money out and stuff like that. But he also was he liked to fuck around with the stock market too. So
Yeah.
he was up there in money, and he
All
was
right.
perfect for Joe. Him and Canarella were that's what he wanted. He wanted them two guys that are never going to contest him or whatever, and he had them, and they were the first two to flip.
So Canarella flipped, and Rich Canarella, for those who don't know, was also a captain in the Bonanno family, a big, big, big money guy. These guys were making millions. Like I said, I mean, God, I'll probably have to do a whole unpacking. The strategy Joe Messino set forth was like trying to mix old and new Cosa Nostra, old school where we wanted you to commit a murder, we wanted you to be involved, we wanted you to be a street guy, but yet we're going to take these big money guys, we're going to make them, and not only make them, but we're going to make them captains because you're going to bring in big money. The problem with that is you're going against kind of the grain in a sense where you might bring money, but then you're better off keeping them money guys and keeping them separate. Let them bring in money. Let the hitters do their job. So give us how Messino screwed up by having like businessmen on hits almost. You know what I mean?
Well, it sounded like a good idea at the time, but I think when we look at the Copa thing and the Canarella, there was two aspects there. His kid had gotten indicted, and so did his wife, Canarella's wife.
Really?
Yeah, she got indicted in that indictment, and it was a tough one. It was his kid and his wife and him, so they kind of had him under pressure.
But unlike Copa, he was facing serious time.
He was facing 2 murders, yeah, and Jerry Chagall was his lawyer. He was ready, and then I guess after 2 weeks he asked me if I made bail. I remember that. He goes, you got. I said, yeah, I got. I'm up here with one body. He goes, yeah, I got 2. He goes, did they give you bail? I said no, and it was kind of like he turned into like a deflated balloon.
But that's the thing though. So now you're in a brigada that nobody ever flipped. So not only you have one at this point, but 2 captains. So now tell us a little about Enter Sal Vitale, which is
Well, no, but it didn't end there. The son flips. There's a guy out there, Pete Rosa, that's been debated that flipped since way before that happened. So they got him they brought him too. And there was like Joey D'Amico that they said was breaking the door down to get into the fucking to get a deal. So now we're up to like 5 people in October.
Jeez.
November.
And then another 5 later on. So essentially, I believe there's a total of 10 Bonanno members flipped, and most of them were from
that I know of.
Or managerial roles.
Yeah, they were big. They were acting captains. There was Jimmy General Barberi, his captain, Jimmy the Taglione. There was Frank Lino, Sal Vitale. There was a lot of them. So I mean, look, if you during this time from 2002 and 2005, if you want to get into the mob, if you want to get made in the Bonanno family, you need to get checked out. Because look, 20% of your upper echelons are telling. So if you had anything to do with them, but then I get it too, because you're ambitious and you don't give a shit. This is the right time. There's nobody out there. So you're like, all right, let me get made. You know what I mean? Because it's what I wanted. But the guys that are made, I think they were pretty much hiding. They didn't want to get indicted themselves.
Well, so after the shoe drops, right? So how does this all pan out? Messino goes away. But
people flip on him,
and now he blows trial. He flips. You got Vitale. So all these guys flip, right? But then it didn't stop there. Then kind of like Basciano steps up, right?
Right. So
walk us through what happened there.
So the Vinny guy, I never met him. He basically real tough guy. Everybody knows, stand up. We know that. But he was another guy that Joe really probably feared to be in that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he kind of falls in the cracks because there's like 8 murders and he's not involved in any of these.
Interesting.
That's
Well,
out
what was
because
real quick? In your opinion, though, like many of the other families, was Bonanno structured where you had your Bronx crew, Queens, Brooklyn, Long Island, Jersey, and they didn't really more like silos where they didn't really intermingle, or was the Bronx crew good with the Queen Ridgewood guys? You know what I mean? Like, what's
well
your understanding of that?
the Bronx Brooklyn thing starts in the 60s. If you know anything about the history of the Bonanno family.
Well, tell us about the
Um
Banana Wars, which Sam the Cavalcante Jersey guy
I,
helped
I'll
mediate.
give you a little bit of it because I'm talking about that in another show, and I don't want to take away from that show. But I
Yeah.
will say that Bill Bonanno was real tight with the Bronx faction,
Okay.
with the DiFilippo family, who was also Costello Medici. So you have the Troutman '66
Yep.
shootout.
Yep.
That was like the last time between the Brooklyn faction and the
Who was it? Gaspari. God, I'm drawing a blank. Not Valente.
well, yeah, no, Magadino's family and with the De Gregorios versus
Di Gregorio. Gaspari Di Gregorio. That's right.
yeah, versus Bill
Hold
Bonanno.
on,
So
hold on,
after
real
that,
quick.
that's how far we go with the and Willie Varello, believe it or not, was there at the shootout, and so was my uncle John.
Wait, really quick. Your uncle. So let's just say theoretically, if you were alive at the time, given your lineage and your family, which side would you been on? Gaspardes or Bananas?
All my family, obviously,
No, well, your family was with who? Gaspari or stuck with the Bananas?
Yeah, with the Gaspari faction.
Got it. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, after that happens and they send him off, they make the peace with the Bronx, and that peace lived for a long time. Up to Joe was there. Joe was very close with DiFilippo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was there. But back to Joe being locked up. That's when everything starts getting a little fuzzy out there. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you're now in the mid 2000s. Messino then rolls on Basciano.
2004, he rolls, but he plays with them and he's doing his thing for about, I think, a good 3-4 months. He didn't have a long longevity, and then they started bringing these guys in because the Louis guy flips out on the street. Remember, they had a 4-man panel out.
Yeah, walk us through that because that would turn out to be a disaster.
Yeah, it's kind of they fell into like the Fred's arms on that one. So Joe's outside. Joe wants money. He's not getting money.
Keep going because I want to get the panel down. Keep going. Sorry.
So he puts the panel together to make sure his stuff getting paid for. They're going after his properties, whatnot. He puts this panel together, and they're Vinny, this guy Louis wearing a wire, Saunders Jr. and Tony, and they got like 50 tapes. This guy really, I mean, he went all out. But the only one that's never caught on this tape out there is Vinny. Vinny sensing something with this guy. He goes, he comes out of nowhere. He's living in Florida. He comes back. He wants to sell me gold coins, and he's part of a panel. Like he would make conversation and he would excuse himself. So I'm like, wow, this guy's pretty sharp. Why would he just get involved? But what happened? They arrested the ones they had the goods on, and Vinny got left out there.
Interesting.
And that's where he got like, well, you know what? And just like any kind of
So Vinny was a last man standing, essentially.
yeah.
Who was Vinny's underboss when he was the acting boss?
What do you mean, Vinny? Who's acting boss?
No. When the panel got broken up because they swept everything
Right.
out, Vinny was still on the street for a little more. Who was under Vinny?
I don't know.
You off the street back then, right?
I was off the street. At 2004, I was off the street. That's why I said I don't like to talk about it because I don't know, and I'd be lying. I don't like that.
This is gonna sound a little weird, but you testified against Messino, but then he later flipped. Did you feel like a little some type of way about that? It's like I flipped, I gave up my life, I helped the government.
Yeah, yes and no, because see, this is what happens. You start rationalizing, like, fuck him. You know what? You look at all the bad things you didn't like about him because you want to rationalize you flipping. And then two wrongs don't make a right. You know what I mean? So you got to be like, yeah, fuck it. All right, he flipped too, but you know what? I flipped. So I'm not going to make a lot of people use those excuses. I hate them, I say this all the time. Who fucked the girlfriend? Who did this? Who did that? and that's made me flip. Who was taking my money? Kind of Joe's thing was that he felt that they weren't kicking up to him no more. That it was a lot of money. They figured he was gonna go do his time, and that happens a lot, even in all types of criminal gang activity. You know, where they're cycles. Even in the projects, you get that one gang that's doing their thing, then they go to
Yeah.
jail, and then the next one's coming, the young head. And that's what happened.
Yeah, but what separates Cosa Nostra from a street gang is, and Sammy said itself, it's a structure, right? And in that structure, the idea is if you cut off the head, another head appears, right? And even to this day, they're still kicking up to Vic Camuzzo, giving money at Christmas time to him. And I felt he probably wasn't as strong of a boss versus, Messino. So I find it interesting that he put his people in place. It
Well, he
turned out
has good people out there, that because that's what.
no, man, no, I get it because they're kicking up. But that's the thing. Messino gutted the administration, put his own people in, and ironically, those are the people that jammed him up. So, how much of a run did Messino have on the street before, from the beginning to the end, as far as you know?
Um, on the street, figure it out from
As a,
'86 to
as a boss, as a
2003.
boss, as a
I
boss.
think he was the boss back then too, because Rastelli was sick, and he was kind of by the '86 he was running it, even though he wasn't in name, but he was.
So you're close to an 18-year run, no, give or take.
He had a what?
If you count the Rastelli
Yeah, of course
time,
he had a run. Yeah, and he had a run when he came out of prison from like 92, 93 to about 2003. So he was out there 10 years.
wow, it's a long time.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is the reason why Messino flipped essentially because it was money, more or less.
I always felt that way, and people might argue about that, but I
All right, tell me what you think about this, and you may be the exception, obviously, but I've had many informants on the show. I know I get a lot of crap for having informants on, but it's I want how else are we gonna get this information, right? But what I'm getting at is just my experience for the most part. I'm just giving you my Tom Levesque armchair NBA kind of view. Um, I think when you and we talked about this offline, when there's not lineage, you tend to not care as much about the Brigada, not care about Cosa Nostra, not care about whatever. And my
all right.
experience, most of the guys that flipped were non-lineage mafioso, meaning first generation, either like they were born Italian, their families from Italy or grandparents from Italy, they're born here and they're like become a mafioso, but their father was a carpenter, or their mother was a seamstress. What I'm getting at is I call them orphan mafioso, where they're only one in their family that was connected. It seems to
No,
me,
I know you said this before.
yeah. So of this whole borgata of flippers, if you will, in my opinion,
Flippers.
80% were non-lineage Cosa Nostra members. Do you agree with that? I don't think Copa was. I don't think Canarella was. I don't think. Well, I think Basciano.
Canarello was.
He didn't rap, but Canarella was. Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, his uncle was Tony Mira, and I'll walk Embriato was his I think
Okay,
an
so
uncle
I'm
as well.
mistaken. But would you agree? Of the 10, majority were non-lineage, or
No, I'm not these days. Anybody flips these days. You've seen that.
No, that's true. That's true.
I mean, is it easier? It's an easier process, I would assume, because your family's got your back. And see, in my situation, that's not it. Everybody knows that too. You know what I mean? They're not like, oh well, when are you coming for fucking dinner? It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
But so yeah, of course the transition is easy.
Now we talked about this on the phone, and feel free to share what you're comfortable with talking publicly. But with
Or
all
even privately, I don't like talking about anything active.
no, well, we're not talking about anybody current. We're not, doing that kind of stuff. But what I'm getting at is, I kind of feel like if I was wearing your hat, if you stood tall, maybe did 15 years, if you came out being a guy with Sicilian lineage, being what you knew, being a tough guy, to be honest, you had bodies under you, like you probably would be a lot tougher than a lot of guys out there, and you probably would be in an administrative position. Is there a little part of you that regrets flipping and saying, "Oh
Well,
shit"?
yeah, because I mean, I wanted, if they would have gave me 15 years, I would have took it. They never offered me that. Never, and when they tried like this to offer that, they didn't give you guarantees that they're not going to hit you with anything else. So and they
What
weren't
what
showing me
what
no
what were
discovery.
you offered? Wait, what were you offered?
But the 15 years was also coming with deportation, right? So
Well, that's
um,
what makes you unique. Keep going about that
look, I
because
did
I
7 years.
agree with
I gotta get 10. I tell everybody I didn't mind jail, you know.
you. Yeah,
Um, the thing is, if I wanted to come out after 20 years, I want to come out and be a bigger asshole than I was before I went in.
yeah.
Because now you got the 20 years ago that's how it works, you know. And I'm glad that didn't happen in a sense, you know. I'm not glad I flipped, but I'm not. I just wish I would have not gotten to that fucking life. That's
Yeah, completely. So then, but I gotta
but
ask.
I don't hate people for getting in that. I don't
But
call people out either.
let me ask you though, like, what type of guy went into the Bonanno family in 2005 and above? You know what I mean? Like, with these legacy street guys, associates that have
That
been
could have
around.
been me if look. That could have been me. I was thinking about that not too long ago. Look, if I wasn't made and I'm still out there, shit, and they told me, hey, wait, you're gonna get made next week because this is where it is. I'm like, fuck, let's go, sign me up. Um, Now if I was made, I'd be like, what the fuck's going on? You know, if I done dirt or mud with people, and these you got 10, 15 people talking, obviously they're not gonna give me a free pass. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna wait and see where we're at, and then maybe by 2010 regroup and go from there.
Now, when you were, you know, because obviously you were in like a witness unit, you're serving with other wise guys. There's always chatter while you were serving your time. Um, did you get some like, oh, this guy got made? Jesus Christ, how did he get his butt? Like, were you surprised at kind of like the caliber of guys that were elevated to administration or got made, or was it very secretive? You didn't know what was going on.
What do you mean?
Like when you were in jail, when you were in
Uh
prison.
huh.
Um,
No, no, there was, and I would say that because he did inform. There was this lawyer that used to come in all the time, Lee, something fucking. I think he had like the Motley Crew name, Tommy Lee. He was a lawyer or something like
yeah, I
that.
heard of him. Yeah,
And he used to, or Tony Lee, one or the other.
Big
And he
Tony.
used to come a little guy, but he was a little arrogant. Like, he was always bringing messages back. And he was wanted to do this whole fucking library of cases. He wanted to fight, all the rats. He was doing things like somebody I don't want to mention trying to do now. And he would come over there and he was all gung ho until the feds picked him up and said, "Hey, we think that you have a lot of stuff to explain about it. You're bringing messages back from back and forth."
Yeah.
And one incident was that Joe goes, "Frankie, come here a sec." I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Listen, you know this kid. I'm not gonna mention the kid who he was. He was outside. I know him since a kid." I go, "Yeah, what about him?" I go, "What is he?" I didn't know nothing about it. I said, "What is he in trouble?" He's a good kid. He's just a little nuts, but he's a good kid. We had the same godparents and everything. He goes, "No, no, no, no." He goes, "A friend of mine been asking about him on the outside," meaning now it makes sense. And I thought he was in trouble. They were actually looking to straighten him out. So they wanted to ask around.
What it's believed that Mikey Nose took the reins after Bastiano went away. As far as you know, or no, you don't know.
I don't.
All right. So
No, I don't. I mean, I'm not. People want to hear. I don't. Look, the mom died the day I flipped. It was just I don't ask. I don't want to. Like I told you before, sometimes people reach out and they go, "Hey, how you doing? How's everything?" Not life, obviously, but friends that I had that were mutual friends with some of these people, and I tell them, "Look, I like you and all that, but let's just not fuck with each other because I don't want to get you guys in trouble for you talking to me. You know what I mean?" So I look out for that too.
makes sense. So do you think the Bonanno family pretty much
No
recovered at
Fly Ricans
all?
is on the money. He's got it all right. Yes, Western Beef was a big spot. He's actually right.
Hey, Edward. Do you think the Bonannos recovered at all? You know, let's say 2,000 Bonannos versus family now.
Um,
The group that recovered, as far as you
they
know,
re-
or what you read.
nah, I don't know. I mean, I don't. I mean, it look, you hear about stuff. that's going on lately. We talked about. I don't want to get into that again. You know, the last episode.
Yeah, no, I got it. We got a little too crazy on that one. So,
I
all
don't
right,
know. I think they're smarter these days. That's all.
yeah, and Bonanno's having probably the closest ties to Sicily out of the five families, maybe up there with the Gambinos. And just as an analyst, you don't got to give specifics. Why don't you think they tap Sicily for their ranks as they thin, in your opinion?
What do you mean?
Like when the ranks were getting thin, when they lost 10 administrative members, when they lost guys going to jail, they were the closest with the Castellamare, different places in Sicily. Why do you think they may reach out to those guys to kind of maybe have some guys come over and fill the ranks? Why do you think that didn't happen? In your opinion?
They tried. I think they tried. There's a couple people they tried everything with. I mean, there was that one kid again. I'll talk about him because he got killed up in Montreal. They tried to go back to what it was, you know, but you know,
Sal, right?
yeah, you can't make somebody they're not just because of the place they're born in. You know what I mean? It's got to be in their blood. So.
Good point. Well, I think a lesson
Not saying
learned.
he wasn't a tough kid. He was a good kid. I just think he was over his head a little bit.
Yeah, I always say from the business aspect, you know, you have strong leadership and then weak leadership, but at the end of the day, it's a leadership that matters. And Messino, although he rose it up, he's a guy who brought it down, and that negates it, in my opinion. A lot of people are like, I heard Jeff Nadeau say respectfully, he might have been one of the best mafia bosses in history. He's actually not wrong when you encapsulate.
No, he's not wrong at all.
You know,
I agree with him. We've talked about that in length. How he was the man. He was the man. I don't care what anybody says now. I mean, now they could say whatever they want, obviously, but back then he was the man.
But here's the thing, though.
Bonanno's wrong the wrong number. That was a bar.
But here's the thing, though. But one of the things I don't get is the one thing I don't get with him is he was older. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he's probably sitting like in like a convalescent center now. Like if he stood tall, he would have had less money, but he kept his honor. But I guess it didn't matter. It is what it is. You know what I mean?
I was surprised. You know, he was down. He was getting after the. You could tell he was defeated after Sal flipped. You know, on his demeanor. You know, just the way his posture and composed himself. I would see him, and they continued going away at his money. You know, they were going. So he was not now to say that I knew he was going to flip. I'd be a liar. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But
all right. So now you go, you flip, you do your thing. How much time did you serve afterwards?
Close to 6 years.
So you served regular time, and then you served time in protected areas. Give us a difference.
No, half.
What does that mean?
3 and 3.
But I'm saying though, give me the difference between general population versus a protected unit. What's the difference?
Well, if I'm doing 20 years, it's easier to get into confrontation and not give a fuck. Well, like when you're in one of these places, you know, one day you're going to get out. So you're really kind of like, hold your own because you don't want to go in front of the judge and he'll be like, holy shit, this guy got in fucking, 8 fights while he was in there, try to do this and that, but when you're doing them regular time, you're quick to the punch. You know what I mean?
So, but I get that, but that's more.
I mean, look, I was in a place that had 70 inmates, right?
Yeah.
And 40 of them had homicides or double homicides. 40.
Yeah, so they were still killers.
But at the same time, and there was guys doing life too. They would just had to behave. They'll send them back to the ADX. So it wasn't like one guy could flip one day. That could happen. Now, was it as hectic as let's say a penitentiary? Of course not, because a lot of these guys were going home.
What of the 70, do you have a rough idea how much were Cosa Nostra related members? Inmates? Like, was it 40? Was it 10? Was it 6?
10%, probably 7.
Okay. With the 7 that were there, did you like hang out with those 7?
We always bumped heads. I got in a fight with one.
So listen, at this point, those guys flipped. You guys flipped. So
yeah, but some of them don't. Some of them think they're still, made, and then they have their little freaking who sits at one end of the table, the other. So now, if you're somebody, you're like, well, fuck that. I don't give a shit, you know.
Who did you who did you serve with if
I'm
you
not
don't
gonna
mind
talk
it?
about.
Come on.
No, I'm not.
I know, but I can't tell if you're not
Yeah, it
comfortable.
kind of was my fault because I was fucking with the guy too much, and he kind of like got pissed off.
So then you're with other Cosa Nostra members, associates, bosses, that kind of stuff. Does it knock you down a peg? Meaning, like when you're with these other guys, I know you said some act like still who they are, right?
No,
But
you tell them go fuck themselves. That's what you do. Who cares? You're not in the mob no more. I've said that many times. I don't care about you.
interesting. What thank you, Nancy. What
They got a bigger tail than I do. That's
Well,
what that means.
let me ask you this. You were there with 7 informants. Now, the other part is people have to understand the Cosa Nostra in New York, even at the time, you're talking at best 1,000 inducted members. So if there was
I
7
call it
guys,
the Basta. I love it.
what's wrong?
No, the Basta. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Basta. No, so you got 7 guys that are there in a small area of a total universe of 1,000. That's not a small number. Are there any traits or similarities or something that the 7 of you guys had in common that you could pick out that you could say, you know what, we all had this in common, and that's part of the reason why the 7 of us flipped. I always try to wonder the psychology behind
Mm,
flipping.
no, the thing. Well, no. There's a lot of depression in those places, and it's usually from the people who are always on the fence. So you get that. That's why people say, "Oh, they live good," and no, you just try to accommodate the situations you made. You know, every, but I'm not. Listen, by no fault am I making people, trying to feel bad for any people. I'm not doing that. But
Now, this is gonna sound super hypocritical, but I'm gonna ask this.
it's
Um,
like a cool, we didn't have a kumbaya moment. Matter of fact, I just didn't like most of the people I was in there with.
Now, it's gonna be a weird question, but I gotta ask it. Did you, in a weird way, not respect these guys and other inmates from other different criminal groups and criminals that flipped in a weird sort of way? Did you not respect a lot of these guys because they flipped, or is there like
Well,
level? Yeah,
I didn't respect them for their criminal history because there was none after that, right? I
yeah,
respected them for their age. If they were older or something like that,
yeah,
I did respect, because just like I respect any person that's older. But
yeah.
it was, and that's if they comported themselves well. If not, I just fucked them off. I wouldn't bother with them. But not as a criminal. No, that shit went out the window with me.
Interesting. What mistake did a mob make? Because I look at it like whenever you make a mistake, whether you marry the wrong person, hire the wrong person, uh, pick the wrong stock and hold on to it. Usually, if you make a mistake, it manifests itself later on in life, right? Because you can't avoid it because it's a mistake, right? So if you look at like the shit hit the fan in like early 2000s, mid 2000s, these mistakes were probably made in the 90s, mid 90s, and so forth, right? What mistake did the Bananas, what mistake did Cosa Nostra in the US make in the 90s that just made it go to shit in the 2000s?
I would have to go with the cooperation deals.
But I want to go deeper. Do you think it was recruiting the wrong people? Like I always like to dig deeper, like at the business angle,
No, I
and
mean,
and
I mean, there's rumors that we like there's the Freedom of Information Act that Bill Bonanno he talked. I mean, it wasn't and this
but
was
Bill
in the
Bonanno
'60s.
talk.
Yeah, and this was in the '60s.
Oh shit!
Um, yeah, he was an informant. So I mean, it's not really the pedigree. It's the person, and what's
Yeah,
going on. I think what made it easier for people in the '90s and on was the Sammy deal. The Sammy deal was
family
huge.
effect. Yeah.
He was that was a big blow. Forfeitures, racketeering, and just time itself.
Why didn't because John Panisi on the old show, he said the mob is like an amoeba. It constantly morphs and moves around and finds its place and survives, right? Why didn't the mob morph quicker and better? Like what? Like you have Rico, you have things that are going to happen, right? But they,
Surveillance, bro. I mean, think about it. There's cameras everywhere. The surveillance is top notch. The policing these days, I mean, you got to be an idiot to think you're gonna get away with freaking crimes for so long. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just where we are in advancement.
yeah. No,
And you're living in the one of the one of the biggest police countries in the world. You thought that
well,
if
it
you
goes
think
by
you're gonna be a criminal, if you think you're gonna be a successful criminal in this country, good luck.
what person or who, and you could say it because they didn't flip. What person who you 100% thought when they got cuffed, they're flipping like 100%. This person's gonna flip. This person's gonna be a rat, and they wind up standing tall. Is anybody who jumps out at you that you would have swore they would have flipped, but they stood up and you like didn't stay? You're scratching your head in shock that they didn't. Was there anybody in your opinion
Oh, that didn't.
that didn't? Correct, didn't.
Oh, yeah, but I'm not gonna mention them. And the only reason was because they were really, really up Joe's ass that it kind of like it could work in two ways. Either rub it off you the wrong way or the right way, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that actually two of them did not.
Well, one of the weird things going back, and this is, I know the no fly zone guys, or at least one of them will get this, is Messino closed the social clubs, didn't go to weddings, but you had to go eat at Casablanca restaurant every Thursday where the food wasn't even that good. That didn't make sense to me. You know what I mean?
That was a, by the way, that was a death sentence back in the day. You couldn't say that.
That's funny. How
Oh
time
yeah.
how things change. But one last question, and then if you have anything, if anybody has anything, I'll drop the link. I don't think I don't. We're not going to super open it up, but if somebody wants to pop in real quick and say hello and be respectful, they can. Um, but why don't these guys ever have an exit strategy like I do? I have like insurance policies. I got contingencies, and I'm a nobody, right? It's like that Italian mentality. You're always worried about your family, and if something happens to me, they can move on and they don't need me, hopefully, if things go, the way that they're supposed to go, right? So my question
Mhm.
to you is, why don't these guys ever have a solid exit strategy, especially Messino and these other guys?
They live day by day. Exit strategies are not conducive to
but that's my point. Like Joe,
exit strategies. I mean, come on.
but hear me out. But they're smart enough to
I
run ahead.
mean, if you were, you're gonna take life insurance. Anybody gonna give you life insurance if they know you're in the a hitman?
Well, that's a little tough, but no, but you have an exit strategy. You buy a building in your niece's name. You have maybe a catering company and your other nephew's name. You say, listen, you put some equity. You're able to gift legally your kids $17,000 a year. Like there's shit that you can do that, God forbid, you get jammed up, you can walk away. And that's what I don't. That's what I don't understand about these guys. The Italians that I know, whether they're in the life or not in the life, they got their community money. They're cheap. They're frugal. Like when they die, they generally get it over to their kids. Like even the wise guys, I just that part, not having some type of plan. Like if Messino really thought he was going to retire outside of those four walls without cooperating, then he's not as smart of a guy as I thought. You know what I mean?
I, I don't know. I don't know. I said it. I said it. If they let him keep his money and he's probably getting fed up, I'm pretty confident he wouldn't have talked.
Interesting. Carlos, no, he makes a good point. Contingency is a weakness for many. I could understand that point. I don't personally agree with it. I don't know. Maybe it's a business training. They say you should always go into every deal, start a deal with knowing the exit strategy. That's one of the first things I learned in business. But that's just me, right? Yeah, it's greed. How much does greed come into play, Frank?
A lot.
Was there ever a
Especially
time that you got greedy and it jammed you up?
no, my money game wasn't even close to that ever. I mean, I told you I wasn't out there for too long. But I guess what happens is while you get up there and you keep climbing, greed becomes a thing, a real thing.
Yeah, but you're part of like the last generation that saw the real wise guys, the suits, the Cadillacs. When you got into the life and you realized it, like, give me the moment you realized that the life was not what it seemed. Like, was it a gradual thing? Was it like something that jumped, like, like you wake up one day, you're like, shit, this ain't it? When did you realize it wasn't what it was?
Um, I shit. I don't know. It took a while. I'm still dealing with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just sounds too cliche to say. Well, hey, fuck. Uh,
Well, I got to ask you. I got to
it's an
ask you.
excuse. I don't have any excuses. I split that.
I got to ask you an important
I
question.
don't need. I don't need a reason why. I mean,
I,
nah.
I'm going to ask you an important question, and I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you an important question. That's just not even going to preface any further. What would you say to somebody, right? If they're considering cooperating, don't give them advice as to why they should cooperate. What would advice would you give to why not cooperate? Go. And take
Why
some time to
not
think about this.
cooperate?
Take some time to think. So there's a young guy reaches out to you somehow. He's like, screw this, screw that. I'm gonna cooperate against my compadre, right? And
Well, I'll be
and
hypocrite. It's a hypocritical question coming from me. What I would say to them.
no, not saying why you should cooperate. I would like for you, or why shouldn't, let's say in general, why shouldn't somebody cooperate? Aside for the loyalty to the street, loyalty to your brethren, give us some of the downsides of cooperation. Because everybody thinks, and the truth of the matter is, everybody gets on informants, right?
It's
Everybody's
everything
gonna,
different. It's everything. It's everybody's different because
no,
looking
Frank. I
back,
want to I want to nail this down because it's an important conversation.
it is.
From
But it's all has
no,
to
no,
do
but
with
I don't want
maybe
to
what you
generalize.
said before.
From your perspective, Frank Francesco Fiordolino, right?
Yeah, I got
Give,
you.
give me, if you don't, what you're comfortable answering, right? Everybody
All right.
thinks, you obviously you go to jail, right? But if you inform, maybe of a shorter sentence and you get out of jail, people thinks it's rainbows and unicorns. It's not, right? So what I want to get
Hold
at
on,
is,
hold on.
yeah, good point. You said there were only two exit plans: life in the joint or the grave. Strong money game is rare. Tough guys are plenty. Marky Mark. No Ricans.
All right, what were you saying now? What would I say?
What I'm trying to say is people assume that cooperators, like I'm a young guy, right? And I have a chance to cooperate, right? People assume that cooperation is easy. That you're on a unicorn right now and it's fucking rainbows and unicorns and gingerbread houses and lollipops. You and I talk a lot and it's not, right? So what I'm trying to get at is give me the downside of cooperating. Go.
Yeah, everybody's different. I'm not trying to beat around the bush, but I
No,
mean, my
but I don't want to know
like
everybody. I want to know your personal
well, if you're
experience
not
as
gonna
to
lose
why.
your family over it,
Yeah. Okay, so
then
losing.
that's different. I lost my family, so that was a downfall in
Oh,
for me.
okay,
Okay.
that's you.
I lost friends. That's another downfall.
Yeah,
I had to adapt to live in another places. Real. This is somebody who never liked to leave New York City. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
And now it's good because I don't miss it at all. But
yeah,
that's another downfall. The downfall is the way. Don't be ready for what you're gonna hear. You might not like it out there, but it's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? So you go there. But my situation is different to a lot of these guys' situation. You even said it yourself. You called it the orphan thing, whatever they call
yeah,
it. I mean, but offer the offer to the pedigree. That yeah, it's different. It's difficult.
yeah. No, because I just think that in fairness, that cooperate, and like again, you could argue, well, if you say cooperators have it easy, what
Oh
about the
yeah, I
guys
forgot the other thing. The other
who
thing too is the other thing too is is I see that. Uh, the other thing is you
never
got to go to
disappoint?
fucking work.
Yeah,
If you weren't working, you would getting money easy and everything came. Now you got to work 7 days a week. You got to do a lot of things that you weren't used to doing.
Let me ask you this. Let's just say the Frank now could speak to the 21-year-old Frank, right? But hear me out. This is a little different question than I asked Sammy. Um, but you wanted it, like, you want to stay a criminal. What would you done? What would you have done differently? And you went back to the 21-year-old self, said, "Listen, stay a criminal, keep doing what you're doing, but don't do this."
That okay. The violent aspect. I would have cut that out.
Got it. Do you think the mob still needs to do violence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not promoting it, but yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
just
you need a deterrent, right? If fucking you're not gonna do nothing, then people are gonna make you do anything. But that's not the case there. Okay, people will be stitched up even today.
yeah. What's something that you've been on the show a few times, but
Sure.
you're the only guy who talks enough but doesn't say much. Nobody knows a lot about you. What's something about you that somebody's watching right now or watching on the replay may not know about you? Maybe an interest, a hobby. What's something that you've
What
done?
is it? The fucking dating game? Come on, man.
No, I like listen, like surface conversations don't work for me. I like the deep dive to find.
No, not that. I'm a regular guy these days. That's all.
Nothing interesting, little known facts.
Not really. No. I like sports, and that's I live I live an easier life these days. That's
What do you miss about the life? You have to miss something. You have to.
no flights on weekends exactly. What do I miss about it?
Yeah.
I don't know, hanging out, with my buddies at nighttime, shooting the shit, um, being part of something that wasn't for everybody to be part of, that
That's
commodity. Not and I'm not even talking about the mob level, just a grown up level. We had a lot of us started with criminal protocols at a young age, and we had that not that that was a good thing, but it was like a natural thing.
how old were you when you left the street? I got picked up and left the street the last time.
31.
Were your contemporaries around your age, right? The Ridgewood guys, did they have their butt in these guys yet, or were you all not made for the most part?
The money guys did.
Got it.
The money guys did. Yes, they were getting made young.
Do you think if you were made going into that, would you have stood tall? Do you ever wonder that?
I it's no, I don't think about that at all. I don't think about. I mean, what's the right answer? That it never happened, so there's no right answer.
Good point. Good point. Like my lawyer says, don't talk about fiction. Just go about with what is in your face.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
exactly.
listen, we're past the hour mark.
Okay.
Frank came on. He did not know what I was going to ask him. These questions just came from the top of my head. I'm going to get called about 10 minutes. I'm going to get MF'd up and down. Just kidding. But I appreciate Frank. I kind of threw some curveballs tonight. I think this was a good one. Hopefully you appreciated the conversation.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one, everybody.
No worries, Frank. Talk soon, man. Thanks again.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Frank. So I'm going to wrap this up. So if you haven't, please subscribe. Please share this with a like-minded friend. Please leave a comment below. Let me know how you thought Frank did. Also, if you want to contribute to the show, there's a little thanks button there. You contribute to the show. I have some like really big things coming up, and every dollar that gets contributed goes to the show. And I have some pretty big things coming up. I took a little bit of a respite between personal commitments and family. My business is doing well, which further puts me away. But this is the year that I want to make Armchair MBA and Mobsters Inc. more of my personal strategy, more of my personal income, more of my personal life, so I can give you guys more content that you know and expect, and the banger interviews that you guys want. Nick Bazzini, some guys look in the mirror and don't like what they see. Again, I never meet one family, not one completely devastated. That's a very good point, Nick. We don't talk about the families enough on both sides. Families of victims of Cosa Nostra, but also families of those that were informed against. You could talk about that, And again, maybe have a separate discussion. I was thinking of maybe having kind of like a viewers type open mic night and having some discussion there, get different points of view, that kind of stuff. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. $10 from the No Fly Ricans. If anyone wants to donate, you're welcome to Super Chat right there. You can sign up for a membership. And again, those on the replay are welcome to hit the buttons. And thank you so much for that. I don't ask for Super Chats enough. I don't ask for stuff enough. It's just I don't do it. I probably have to do a better job at it. Also working on getting some more sponsors for the show. That's typically why I haven't asked for it in the past, because shows were sponsored by an outside company. I like to do it that way. So if you want to give, you kind of want to give versus feeling like you have to. But yeah, so thank you so much for the No Fly Recon. So I got some big interviews coming up. Hopefully next week will be with a very, very important international author who is the go-to guy in organized crime. He's up there with Antonio Nicasso and Anna Sergi. The guy's a whale. I've been working on this for about a few months. Hopefully that's going to materialize. I have another interview that I'm looking to line up. And then I have a really, really big interview that I need a sponsorship for. So, and again, anybody, if you have a business or a brand or a marketing team could, do some service for you, we can always exchange that in terms of a sponsorship for the show. And and the listenership has been great. Our shorts are doing great. That's I got this short shirt from YouTube. We do almost 1 million views a month just on shorts alone, which is pretty cool. Boss, the time for a cigar. I had 2 really nice cigars yesterday. My first cigar, I had a tobacco. That was my second because I want a little coffee because I was eating. So I had a little tobacco cigar. And then my first cigar, what was it yesterday? It was something different. Give me a second. Oh, I had a Macanudo Cafe. I went back to that. I usually smoke that in the summer. The one place that I go to, I didn't know they had it. It was smaller than I would like, a smaller ring, smaller size. But I had a Macanudo Cafe yesterday and a tobacco. Both were beautiful. I have in my humidor now the Monte Cristo New York edition cigars. I had about 12 of them. Got about 3 left. Going through those pretty quick. Thank God it's been cold, because if it's been warm, I tend to smoke outside in my backyard a little more often. My wife wants me to cut down. She's going to give me 1 to 2 days a week to smoke. So when I do go, I have 2 because I know I can't go as much as I used to. So 1 to 2 days per week. We should maybe do a cigar episode where we can light up, people jump on the screen, and kind of have a jam. And then, Carlos and the No Fly Zone Reeking crew, Nelson, etc. Lou, I can't wait till we can meet up at cigar someday. I'm actually going to be in Miami in April. So Carlos, I'm not far here from Miami. And I think Nelson may have some business that way. So that'll be pretty cool to go. Let me finish this stuff up. Looking forward to it. This is so rad. Thank you, 3OG. You're actually, I think, pretty new. So thank you so much. So this is it. Hey, Squally, how are you? I really appreciate it. I kind of do want to stay on longer, but I have to exercise. I'm doing a 5K in a few weeks, and I am very obese, so I need to lose some weight. So thanks again, everybody who watched. Again, those on a replay, if you watch this long, feel free to donate via the thanks. And thank you for watching the Armchair NBA.